India's government auctioned off usage of the 5G spectrum to companies. The two winners are removing Huawei and ZTE from India. The founder of Huawei has declared the company should just focus on survival. It's been hit by foreign sanctions and is losing money. 3 cases in Hong Kong show how the city has changed under the national security law. One of the cases is the trial of Jimmy Lai, founder of Apple Daily. Finally, how will China be affected if it's sanctioned like Russia? As China threatens to take over Taiwan, China's government has begun analyzing this question. Let's get into it. Welcome to Sound of Hope News. My name is Daniela Wolensak, and today is August 24th. This month, India held a 5G spectrum auction, meaning its government sold the rights to use 5G bands to the highest bidder, with the goal of launching 5G in India by October. Interestingly, the 2 major telecom companies that won are now getting rid of China's Huawei and ZTE from India's 5G bandwidth. These 2 companies are Jio and Bharti Airtel. For 5G networks, using Huawei and ZTE equipment is the cheapest option, but for security reasons, Jio and Bharti Airtel are choosing to use equipment from Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung. According to Business Standard, Jio has already conducted 5G trials with Ericsson and Samsung and is in talks with Nokia. Meanwhile, Bharti Airtel has phased Huawei and ZTE out of its 4G network and is replacing them with Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung equipment. The reason? Security. The Indian Army is planning to use 5G networks to enhance communications for frontline troops and probably assumes Huawei would spy for China. India's industry also wants 5G to improve key infrastructure in places like harbors and airports. In total, more than 150 wireless network sites are expected to be built in India. As of August 22nd, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, India, the members of the Five Eyes Alliance, and the European Union have also announced a ban on Chinese companies building national 5G networks. After a series of company disasters, Huawei has informed its employees to focus on company survival from next year to 2025. Huawei founder Ren Zhengfei stated that the current environment requires Huawei to change its business thinking. In the next 3 years, Huawei plans to shrink off all of its marginal businesses to improve profitability and cash flow. Huawei may not break through in the next 2 years, and the company warned employees not to harbor illusions about the future. What's the cause? Huawei has been hit by a series of sanctions from the US and British governments in recent years. These sanctions almost completely confined the company to China. Since last year, Huawei has been accused of squeezing into a variety of industries, such as smart car manufacturing, pig farming, and mining, to survive. New developments have been reported in 3 high-profile legal cases in Hong Kong. All were because of China's national security law introduced in 2020. For some background on the law, it was an unpopular law that criminalized secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces. It cracked down on pro-democracy activists and reduced Hong Kong's autonomy. According to an analysis by Radio Free Asia on August 23rd, the Hong Kong courts act differently under the national security law compared to the past. The group standing trial are Apple Daily and Next Media's founder, billionaire Jimmy Lai, 47 prominent democracy activists, and the political organization Returning Valiant. Numerous Hong Kong media outlets reported that the Secretary for Justice of Hong Kong, Lin Dingguo, had instructed that there was no need for a jury in Lai's case, on the grounds that the case had involved foreign factors. Lai was charged for colluding with foreign forces under the national security law. Lai and 3 associated companies all denied the charges against them. The remaining 8 Next Media executives all pleaded guilty. If found guilty, Lai could face life in prison. Similarly, the Hong Kong Justice Department also declared a no-jury trial for the case for the 47 pro-democracy activists on the ground of involvement of foreign factors. Former Deputy Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Public Opinion Research Institute, Zhong Jianhua, said, quote, "The government does not want ordinary citizens' opinions in the adjudication process, so they worked a few judges to ensure that the judgments were in line with what the Hong Kong government and Beijing wanted. The whole process is just a game. Without a jury, they can manipulate trial material at will. They can say you're guilty even if you're not. I feel that cases involving the national security law will generally be handled this way in the future." End quote. At present, 29 of the 47 defendants have pleaded guilty. 6 defendants in the returning Valiant case pleaded guilty on August 21st. 4 of them were only 16 to 17 years of age. This is the first time minors have been convicted under the national security law. Zhong gave a reminder that although the defendants chose to plead guilty, it doesn't mean that they admitted to any wrongdoing. The case was decided solely by the judge, absent of objective judicial justice. What if China was hit by the same sanctions as Russia? It's possible. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the Western world responded by withdrawing major companies from Russia, targeting Russian individuals, and barring Russia from repaying its debts, as well as other sanctions. Sanctions are some of the strictest ways of keeping an opposing country in check, short of going to war. Now, China looks as though it may invade Taiwan, and the Western world is prepared to sanction China. How would China's economy look if that happens? China's Ministry of Public Security and the Ministry of State Security of the Chinese Communist Party ask the same question. According to Nikkei Asia, they published a non-public report in April analyzing the damage sanctions could cause. It pointed out that China was likely to fall into a food crisis. And more critically, the sanctions would hit the global economy harder than the pandemic did. A crisis in the Taiwan Strait would force China to return to a planned economy and to be cut off from the world. If China's imports and exports are disrupted, China's overseas earnings will disappear, and China will be unable to get necessities only available overseas. Nikkei Asia argues this will stab the CCP's fatal spot. For example, let's look at soybeans. Although China claims to be an agricultural power, it grows only 20% of its own soybeans. It actually imports 30% of its soybeans from, of all places, the United States. Soybeans are critical for life in China because the Chinese people use soy oil daily. In addition, soybeans are used in pork feed, and pork makes up 60% of all the meat consumed in China. If soybean imports are suspended, all of China will face food problems. Food problems could lead to all sorts of crises for the Chinese Communist Party. We've already seen it in 1989. That year, the soaring prices of pork and other commodities led to social unrest. It was a factor behind the famous pro-democracy movements that year, including the student protest that was massacred by the government. A 54-year-old employee of a trading company in Beijing, who wished to remain anonymous, mentioned that the protesters of June 4, 1989, chanted anti-inflation slogans in addition to their democratic demands. Süddeutsche Zeitung recently published an article entitled "China Can't Bear the Cost of War." The analysis said that right now, the Chinese Communist Party is swamped with difficulties. The zero-COVID policy is ruining the economy in China. Real estate there is crashing. Unemployment is soaring, and China's working population is aging. The article reads, if there is a real war with Taiwan, China will completely fall into the abyss of crisis. On the other hand, the article also argued, when faced with internal difficulties, authoritarian rulers often try to shift contradictions to external conflicts. Is it possible for Xi Jinping to do so? Xi Jinping is the Chinese president. Thank you so much for watching Sound of Hope News. If you like what you saw, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you tomorrow.